Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Alien Force Retrospectives. And today we're going to be looking at episode 6 of Ben 10 Alien Force, Max Out. And sweet to the point, Max dies. Yeah, I'm going to start this off saying that because that's the whole reason the episode is called Max Out. Because this episode for a while made it look like Max was dead. Pretty much the premise of the episode was that Ben, Gwen, and Kevin were going after a character that was honestly solely introduced for this episode named Ken Tennyson. No relation to Ben 10,000's son except for cousin status, because Ken is meant to be Gwen's brother. And apparently he's a college student, and he was supposed to be coming home from college a little while ago, but he said his car broke down in a little town called Santa Mina. So Ben and Gwen are worried, so they ask Kevin to drive them out there. But at the same time, it turns out that Max Tennyson, who's been missing since the Ben 10 Returns two-parter, is also in Santa Mina for the exact same reason. He's here looking for Ken, but unlike Ben and Gwen, he knows that who took them. It turns out that it was the DN aliens, which Ben, Gwen, and Kevin ultimately discover after they find Ken's car, which they call the Awesomobile, which is dumb even for this show's standards. And it turns out it was sabotaged with a piece of alien tech that dampens car emissions. And after they managed to find the DN alien that Max questioned, who was impersonating a waitress at a diner. And it turns out that Ken is being kept at this factory called the Hatchery, which essentially the Hatchery is what I can easily say, it's the closest thing I can describe it. It's the place where DN aliens are sort of born. Pretty much, this episode winds up revealing how DN aliens are quote unquote made. It turns out that all the DN aliens that the group has so far seen throughout the series, it turns out they're human. That their appearances are the result of them being mixed with this strange creature called a xenocyte. Essentially, it's a parasite that the hybrid have created that whenever they put it on a human's face, it completely alters their mind, brainwashes them, and completely changes their appearance. Essentially, that's how they become DN aliens, and with the transformation, they become completely loyal to the hybrid. Their memories stay intact, but otherwise their whole entire disposition has changed. As such, the only way they can blend into society is to wear the ID masks that they wear, which, as they put them on, and they become what they used to look like, and all they have to do is take it off. So everyone pretty much goes to the hatchery, and essentially Max gets there first because he's a few steps ahead of everyone. He manages to find Ken, who's, I will openly admit, actually does have a slight resemblance to Gwen. He has the same color hair and kind of the same face structure, so you can kind of see how they're related. But pretty much, and Ken, unfortunately, has been transformed. They put it while the DN aliens were interrogating him. They put a xenocyte on his face, and he's not completely transformed when Max finds him, but his mind's already been altered enough so that when Max finds him and then tries to help him, he tases him and knocks him out. So Max is captured by the hybrid because he's at this place too. But meanwhile, Ben, Gwen, and Kevin manage to get inside the factory, and they end up finding a group of DN aliens, but one of which is Ken, who, despite the fact that he's still transformed, half of his face is not, which is kind of weird considering what we learn later on in the show. Or what we see later on in the show, but otherwise, what happens is that, otherwise, Ken is still completely altered. Gwen doesn't want to hurt him because it's her brother, and so they're trying to fit, and they realize that whatever's causing Ken, whatever's on his face is what's causing this. So they try and get it off, but it's stuck too tight. Throughout the episode, whenever Ben has gotten close to because throughout the episode, wherever the Tennysons have encountered DN aliens, because they went to Ken's car, they found slime, or even with the waitress that Max cuffed, there was slime. Whenever they got close to the slime, the Omnitrix wound up beeping and reacting. However, when Ben gets close to Ken, it actually speaks. And okay, actually it spoke earlier, but this time it actually says that it actually detects damaged DNA nearby, and it wants to know if they can repair it, if Ben wants to repair it. And essentially, what this is, it's a DNA repair function, which is actually a nice new function that this episode introduces. It shows the actual. It turns out that the Omnitrix not only can transform its user into a number of alien forms, it can also repair damaged DNA. As when it detects the DNA aliens, they're pretty much damaged and they're on their altered DNA. It actually restores them, which admittedly it kind of is a function that was kind of used in Destroy All Aliens. So to be fair, Destroy All Aliens was made after this show, when the Omnitrix went nuts and was turning people, and with the help of Max and his Mechamorph suit, able to restore people back. But you can make the argument that the Omnitrix was broken there, and again, it was made after Alien Force, so I don't know. Whatever, I don't care. Maybe they should have okay, I'm getting sidetracked on something else, but anyway. They managed to cure Ken, and he's not surprised that his sister, his cousin, and this guy they know all have superpowers. But because he's supposed to be the normal guy of their group. But otherwise, he lets them know that Max has been captured, so they go to the higher floor, because that's where Max was brought to talk with the hybrid, and that's where we learn that these things are called xenocytes. And so Ben and Gwen finally reunite with Max. It's a nice, happy reunion. It's all hugs and cheerful. Max is just glad that Max is forgiving of Ken because he was under mind control. And apparently Max is a stalker because he somehow knows that because he somehow has been watching Kevin, and he knows about the plumber's badge he swept, which you can admit maybe he scanned on his plumber's badge because he somehow has a plumber's badge. I don't know how. Wasn't he supposed to be retired? They even point this out in the episode. When he's captured, the hybrid says, "Max Tennyson, you've been active in your retirement." Which, okay, Max says this is a hobby, but we see it actually is sort of a full-time job in other episodes, so I don't know. Maybe he came out of retirement. Maybe it's like with Solid Snake in Metal Gear. Whenever he retires, they pull him back in. But whatever. However, the reunion is cut short because there's an announcement over the PA system about something called Project DNA. And it turns out that the hatchery, as I mentioned, as I already said, is shipping out all these xenocytes somewhere to build a giant DNA alien army. And I apologize for the sun right now. I'm recording this at a very bad time, but I kind of just wanted to wait to the house with myself. I'm regretting this immediately, but sorry about my face is going to be lit up for the rest of this video, most likely. There's no way of getting around it, so anyway. Max charges all the kids with taking care of it, including Ken, because after he was free, he actually does want to help, which is actually pretty noble, because one of the things they keep talking about is how cool he is. And it actually is nice that despite the fact that he has no powers, he actually does want to help the group. So they go, and pretty much what the DNA aliens are doing are loading all these xenocyte eggs into hundreds of trucks that they're planning on sending out to various parts of the U.S. to build an army. Okay, this is really distracting. Oh, hold on. I'm going to try. Oh, crap. Okay, I'm just going to sit like this. I'm going to sit like this, because this is the only way I can do this without the sun getting in my eye and making my face light up like a Christmas tree. So anyway, the group goes to take care of the trucks, with Max staying behind, because he says he has some business to take care of, and pretty much Ben, Kevin, and Ken do what they're best, but Gwen is the one that does all the most damage because she's the most pissed because of all the things that have happened in this episode. But even when they destroy the trucks, they go back to check on Max, and it turns out on the top floor is essentially what could be called the egg hatching machine. It's a giant sack that spits out the xenocyte eggs, and in the middle of all this, Max is fighting the hybrid, and the hybrid manages to get the upper hand and threatens to kill Max if anyone comes closer. But it turns out this was actually Max's plan. As in the episode, he had a handheld null void projector, which, okay, you can say the original was a null void projector too, but this one's a little more compact. But it turns out that Max was planning on that, despite all of the team's efforts, the factory will still be up and running. So Max decides he needs to destroy this place. So he rips off the lens on the null void projector and just has the switch. And he says that without the focusing lens, the thing is like a hand grenade. It can take out half a mile. And of course, the Ben and Gwen do not want this, because this is, and honestly, even as a kid, this scared the heck out of me. And I'll talk about that after I'm done with my spoilerific summary. But otherwise, he tells them that it's their job to protect the planet now. It's up to them. They're the ones that do this. Ben and Gwen are obviously distraught. They don't want to see this happen, but Max hits the button. Gwen puts up a shield before the thing explodes, and then BAM! The whole factory is destroyed, pretty much, with the only survivors being Ben, Gwen, Kenan, and Kevin. So they pretty much decide so pretty much another part of the Hybrid's plan is stopped, but the end of the episode pretty much shows that it's only a temporary setback, as among the destruction, a few workers are picking up xenocytes, and with a flash of lightning, you see that they're actually DNA aliens wearing ID masks. So, well, first and foremost, I like the episode. I do like this episode. I think the biggest thing I can talk about is the quote unquote death of Max. And spoilers ahead right here. Spoilers ahead right now for the rest of the series, but he's alive. He is alive. He does not die in this episode. He comes back later, though I'm not going to say what happened, really, because that's for another episode. I'll talk about it then, but for now, honestly, I was shocked by this as a kid. I was, honest to God, shocked by this. Mostly because as I mentioned in the Kevin's Big Score vlog, when I watched this episode, I was under the impression that the show was leading up to the Ben 10,000 timeline. And so I always figured that Kevin would at some point in the show turn into a bad guy, and they would eventually find Max and they'd all be one big happy family. But the implication that Max died was something that was hard for me to accept. Not just because of that, but because I'm just thinking, no. Because he was one of the main characters from the original show. You don't just kill off one of the original characters. That's not something you do. But it is something that has occur, and it sticks because imagine you're a kid watched the original show and then came to this and decided to stick around because despite the change in tone. You see, the main three of the original series was Ben, Gwen, and Max. As such, you have Ben and Gwen still around, now older, with Kevin being in place of Max because he was off doing God knows what. But to see one of the main three from the original show apparently doing a sacrificing moment that ends up killing him, you're just as shocked as everyone else because this is a character you watched for 4 seasons. That is something you don't get over. And I was in denial. For the longest time, I was thinking, no, he can't be dead. He can't be dead. He can't be dead. But for so many episodes, they treated it as if he was dead. You never saw hide nor hair of him. I, honest to God, started to believe he was dead. Started to believe he was dead. And it really started getting me. I'm thinking, oh my God, are they actually killing him? And honestly, that's when all of this kind of started getting to me, as I started realizing maybe they aren't going for the Ben 10,000 stuff. That's future. Is probably not going to probably not going to happen, because this is the episode that started getting that emotion, and subsequent episodes that can keep confirming this, that keep making this that help drill this in and show, yeah, there's a reason why they brought Kevin in, not just to show that a villain could change, but to show this isn't going to be that they're going a different direction, that this is not leading to the original Ben 10,000 canon, which admittedly did get on my nerves a little, but honestly the show kept me going otherwise, as there was still some nice stuff there. But anyway, what else should I talk about? Well, I already I think the episode also introduces I already talked about this in the summary, but this episode also brought up two new things to bring about. Mainly the creation of the DNA aliens, that they're human beings that are mutated by the hybrid to be their servants. And then the new function in the Omnitrix, which is something that really honestly did not happen for a while. I think the last time that we got something new with the Omnitrix was season 3 with the stuff with the Halloween arc, where the Omnitrix was sampling DNA, and I think maybe the self-destruct mode, but wasn't really a function. It was just a basic setting that got tripped. But otherwise, this is a nice little thing. I like seeing that. And it kind of further emphasizes the whole peace thing that Asma said the Omnitrix was supposed to be. That was a device made for peace. It not only stores DNA but restores it. I like that. It's a nice little thing that I think helps out. And again, the episode also adds to the overarching story for the series, because it was started because again, I mentioned before how Benton Returns left some plot threads hanging, because because despite the fact that they tracked down the enemy's base, you still didn't know what they were doing, why they were doing all this, etc. And even with the introduction of the hatchery, you still don't know what their ultimate plan is. You know they're building they're building an army of DNA aliens, but you don't know for what reason. You don't understand what's going to happen. You don't understand what their ultimate goal is. They just know that this place is a part of it. You still don't know what's going on, and even Ken says that they're planning something big, but he doesn't know what it is. He doesn't say anything, because I think if he knew what it was, he would tell them. But otherwise, yeah, nothing occurs from this. So, what else do I want to talk about? Well, I think one thing I do want to talk about that honestly is a big flaw of this episode is Ken himself. And I'm not gonna lie, this character is kind of a waste of space. And I'm not saying that in the sense of he's a bad character. Not far from it. From what you see, he seems like he's a good starting point for a character. You don't see much of him in the first half of the episode. And in the second half, they set him up alright-ish. He's introduced because he seems like a nice guy. He takes all the stuff in stride, strangely enough. He cares about his family. He wants to help. He wants to help fight these things despite the fact that he has absolutely no powers, which is ballsy and kind of cool, but honestly, the guy's a waste of space, mostly because he's unnecessary. He was solely introduced just to be what gets everyone together in this episode. Because honestly, why wasn't he mentioned before this episode? Because I don't think he was conceived. In the original series, the reason Gwen was on the road trip was because Max talked to her parents into letting her come. So why didn't he talk them into bringing Ken? Why didn't he? Was he in high school or something? Did he want to hang out with his friends? I don't know, but he obviously cares about them, so maybe he want to be with his sister or something. I don't know. There's never a mention of him in any other medium except this episode, and that's it. After this episode, he is never seen again, never referenced again. Essentially, this episode treats him as just the only reason he's here is to set up is to get all these characters, is to give a reason for all these characters meeting in Santa Mina. But aside from that, there's nothing. There's a starting point for a character there, but there's nothing else. He's just there. He doesn't add anything. He doesn't add anything except for being the plot, except for being what gets everyone involved. He's just there, simply for being there. And as such, it's kind of a problem. But I think the rest of the episode still holds up. I think the drama is nice enough. I still like seeing these people act together, and I think this is something I neglect to mention, but the action in the show it's nice enough. It's not great, but it's still very action-packed, very fast, quick pace, and because it's now focusing more on the team aspect, you can see more, and since everyone on the team has powers, you can kind of see them, you can actually see them covering different angles of the battle, which is something that I like seeing even in classic Ben 10 when Gwen started adopting her powers. I like that, and it definitely shines in this episode, so on the whole, I think it's a good episode. It has a nice drama, a nice intense ending that really does get you questioning what's going on. It sets up some more nice plot points for the overarching story with the hybrid. And I think my only problem with it is just what gets everyone here. Ken, I feel like there wasn't enough time devoted to him, and he felt like a waste of space because he becomes a waste of space because he's never mentioned or talked about before or after this episode. So I guess that's really all I can say. Good episode, that's it. So yeah. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and tune in next week where we look at the show's love interest. So yeah. Again, thank you for watching. I'm Sam Johnson, and I will see you next week. Hopefully without the light from the lake out there shining in my face. Take care. This is really annoying.